The radical. Fundamental principles of freedom, rational self-interest, and individual rights. This is the Yaron Brook Show.
All right, everybody, welcome to Yaron Brook Show on this, what is it? It's November 30th. It is the last day of November. It is the beginning of that, period between Thanksgiving and Christmas. Christmas is just around the corner. New Year's around the corner. 2026 is around the corner. Anyway, today we're going to talk about civilization and the role of religion in it. Primarily, we'll talk about civilization. And then I will do some reviews of songs that about a year ago you guys asked me to review, and I apologize. I have been negligent in not getting these reviewed sooner. So today we're going to do the songs. My hope is the next weekend I'll start on some of the TV shows. I think there's one movie that I have to review. There's a couple of there's a biopic and a 40-minute expose, and then we've got a book by Evola that I need to review. So my goal is to do all of that by the end of the year. Hopefully we can get all that done by the end of the year. So Saturday shows moving forward. Today's Sunday, I know, but Saturday shows moving forward will have a substantive theme and then reviews every Saturday. So I've got my work cut out for me. Got a lot to read, a few episodes of to see. Yeah, I've got right now, and those of you who listen to this later, whatever, if this needs correction, please let me know. But what I have is after these songs, I've got, and let me know if I missed any songs or if I've finished all the songs. I've got Black Adder. I've got a Star Trek episode. I've got 2 monologues from Andor. I've got a movie, either Ford versus Ferrari or Forisa, a Mad Max saga. And then I've got 40-minute expose of the Elon Musk cheating scandal and a 2024 biopic called Better Man, and then Ride the Tiger, a book by Evola. So that's what I've got left. If I'm missing anything, let me know, and we'll make it up. But anyway, let's jump in to a discussion of civilization. And so let me just say that a lot of this is just my thinking coming out of a seminar I attended. When was this? A week ago, I think a week ago. I attended a seminar in Austin, Texas, with a bunch of really, really smart people and people you guys know, and my co-author Don Watkins, but Greg Solimeri and Jason Ryans and Jason Crawford and a bunch of other people, many of whom, I think all of whom, almost all of whom, I think all of whom, I've interviewed at some point on the show, to talk about kind of the role of ideas in history, how to look at history, and then an evaluation of Don and my book and an evaluation of Jason Crawford's book. He's also got a book coming out. So we talk, and all of it relates to history, ideas, how to view the arc of history, and so on. And so this is kind of, today is going to be a riff of kind of my ideas coming out of that seminar and how it applies to the topic of the book that Don and I are writing, which is currently titled Western Civilization versus Religion, but who knows what the final title will be. But hopefully the book will be going out to try to see if we can get publishers soon, and hopefully we will finish the book by the middle of next year and get it published by the end of next year or the beginning of the following year. We'll see. So these are thoughts as they are gelling with, based on the seminar and based on everything else that I've been doing. So first, note that I didn't call this Western civilization, the discussion today, because, really, I think it is an important point that if one looks at history, there is one story of civilization. It happens that from the Enlightenment, or maybe from the Renaissance on, that civilization was centered in the West, primarily Western Europe and then America, but has since, again, become global to a large extent. Western civilization today is a global civilization. So what we're going to talk about today is the arc, the historical arc, the historical development of civilization. I think it's also important to note, and I think this was a perspective coming out of the seminar, which I always had, but really sharpened it. It really sharpened it, and it made it explicit in a sense. And that is that civilization is a process. It's a process that is continuously building on the past. It is continuously building on knowledge. It is continuously, if it's moving in the right direction, continuously improving. It's a civilizing process. And this is why we can talk about Egyptian civilization of, 3,000 years ago. And I don't know much about very ancient civilizations, 4,000 years ago, maybe 5. But, if they lived that way today, we wouldn't consider them civilized. We'd consider them barbaric. But in the context of the time, they were civilized. And then you've got a building, the next civilization rises, and it builds on the previous civilization, improves on it, makes it better, advances it. And there are periods in human history, we can talk about those, where there's no civilization. It disappears, or at least its manifestation disappears, even though, there are people preserving it in the background and in hiding and in secret, but it often just, disappears. And then when it comes back, it is building on past knowledge. And just like knowledge builds, just like we stand on the shoulders of giants before us, of people who discovered and presented us with knowledge of the past, we build on that knowledge. So civilization is an ever evolving, ever growing, ever deepening, ever getting closer to an ideal. Let's talk about what civilization is before we get kind of to the history of it. So I'm just reading kind of a standard kind of description of civilization. A complex human society with developed forms of government, culture, social structure, and technology. Probably put in law, a system, some kind of system of law, some kind of semblance of law, and social structure, technology. Typically, it's characterized by, a stable food supply, urbanization, written language, and some kind of relative to what's around it and relative to what came before, some economic, stability and benefit, a higher standard of living of what's around it and benefit. Less starvation, less being exposed to the elements, governments and laws. There's a structure, culture. There are ideas, and there is as certainly there's an attempt at some level, and we started at a very primitive level and we advanced with civilization, an attempt to understand the world around us. Which ultimately becomes science, an attempt to understand the world, and philosophy, science and philosophy. And religion is as Ayn Rand described it, a primitive form of trying to understand the world around us. It's it's a written language. There's a written language. There's a way of communication. There's an effective way of communication. There's technological advancement. There's an improvement in the standard of living, again, at various rates. There's art. There's some form of aesthetics, whether it's simple drawing or the sculptures of the Egyptians, all the way up to the Renaissance and the amazing arts of the Renaissance. There's architecture, again, from the pyramids to grand buildings in Rome, to mosques, cathedrals, and ultimately, and Frank Lloyd Wright. There is development in architecture. Architecture again is developing. So there is that. So those are all the kind of the features, the expressions of civilization, of a civilized world, and you could think of, Andrew says freedom. Freedom as an ideal, right? Ultimately, civilization requires freedom. Yes, but early civilizations were not free. We still say Egypt was a civilization because in the context of its time, it was relatively prosperous. It had a system of government and laws. It had some stability, political stability. It had, arts. It had a system of arts. It had an attempt to try to understand the world through religion in their case, and written language, and some technological advancement. Of course, the pyramids architecturally are quite stunning in how technologically advanced they are. So civilization has these external manifestations. We can talk about the cause of all of these, what leads to all of these. And ultimately, what leads to successful civilization is man using his mind. Man, engaging with, one second, something's going on here. Man engaging with the world around him. Why is this not working? 1 second. All right, it's working now. Man engaging with the world around him, learning to understand that world, and then using his mind to change that world to fit his wants, needs, desires. Right? So, think about the amount of thought, the amount of planning and thinking, the amount of the application of reason, of rationality that had to go into building the pyramids. The pyramids are not easy to build. You had to carve out the stones. You had to transport them to where they were built. You had to figure out their sizes. You had to figure out how to lift them. And even though slaves and, who knows who actually did the physical labor, there had to be a real mind behind it. So the fundamental feature of civilization is a mind at work. A mind at work. And as civilizations improve, grow, develop, what you see is the human mind being applied to more and more things, to more and more of reality, to more and more of man's needs. Think about the complexity of early agricultural civilizations, because at the time they were civilizations relative to the nomadic tribes, which continued for, if we first started agriculture in 12,000 years ago, at around 10,000 BC, then, and some of my dates are going to be off. I'm not a professional historian, but a long, long time ago, right? If agriculture is around 10,000 BC, we still have nomads today. We certainly had nomads well into the 20th century in Arabia, in the Middle East, and Northern Africa still has nomads today. Nomadic lifestyles or nomadic tribes existed side by side with the beginnings of civilization throughout, or the development of civilization throughout human history. It's an interesting question why not more people joined the civilized and adapted civilization, but it was side by side for forever, to some extent still today. There were hunter-gatherers, but there were also herders and nomadic people who didn't settle down. And it's impossible really to create civilization unless you settle down. This is why civilization is very much related to urbanization. Civilization goes hand in hand with towns and cities. The size of the cities, the extent of people living in cities is a measure, an indication of civilization and the growth and the existence of civilization in any particular time, in any particular period, in any particular place. But think about the first people that settled in agricultural communities and the difficulties that entailed, the knowledge that they had to accumulate in terms of planting and harvesting and efficient use of the soil, and then getting water from whatever river. Agricultural societies initially were very close to rivers, but getting the water from the river to where you were planting, the irrigation systems. And you go back thousands of years, and what you find in all different parts of the world, complex systems of irrigation, which are among the real first technological achievements of man. I mean, large-scale technological achievements. I mean, the bow and arrow is a technological achievement. All tools are technological achievements. But this is on a grand scale. Getting water to do what you want it to do is not easy. Not easy. Creating a system of irrigation is a complex, is a real achievement. Fluid dynamics, that was the one class in civil engineering that was really, really, that and strength of materials were the two most difficult classes I took. And yet, they figured out, without the math, they figured out much of the fluid dynamics to get the water to where they needed it to go, and so that they could irrigate vast areas. I mean, one of the things that I learned in the book I read this book called Lost Enlightenment, about the golden age of Islam in Central Asia, is how green Central Asia was in the pre-Islamic era and through the Islamic era until about, 1300 AD. And the reason was not climate change. It wasn't that there was more rain there or the temperatures were different or something like that. People looked at that and it's not. It was green because people had devised these complex irrigation systems to move water from where the rivers were, and there are plenty of rivers in that area, to where they were growing stuff. And Afghanistan was an amazing, flourishing place during this period. And now it's what we know it for is a barren desert with no culture, no civilization, the anti-civilization, because anti-human life. So in an important sense, right, civilization is pro-human life. It's a facilitator of human growth, flourishing, at whatever level the civilization has achieved. And civilization is something that is constantly getting better. It's getting better in making human life better. And when we say Western civilization is the best, it is. It's the best by the standard of individual human flourishing. It's the best by the standard of the ability of the individual to understand the world around him, to thrive materially, to learn and experience, spiritual values, freedom, but the ability to use his mind in such a wide array of issues and topics. So Western civilization has built on all previous ones, but it's all one sequence. It's all one process. Counter to this idea that there was a dark ages and knowledge disappeared from the planet, that's just not true. Civilization just shifted to somewhere else. It didn't go away. I mean, there was a period where it was, on the down and had faded, And it certainly disappeared from the West for 1,000 years. But in other parts of the world, it came back and flourished and outdid what it was before the fall of Rome. And then as it went away, it started rising in the West. So that's kind of this flow of civilization, this arc of this no, it's not really an arc, this progress of civilization. I mean, you can think of it as, Mesopotamia, Egypt, Greece, and you can see, for example, in Greek civilization is the in a sense the fountainhead of so much of what we consider civilization today. Why? Because if in Mesopotamia and in Egypt, while there's growing knowledge, there's growing understanding of the world, there is solutions to certain technological problems, irrigation, for example, the building of large-scale architectural projects. You see that the establishment of laws and written language for the first time in human history. The laws might not be ideal, but there's the beginning of that. And by the way, I am going to, in my discussion here, there are two civilizations I'm going to be ignoring because I don't know anything about them. Well, maybe more than two, but certainly two that are related to the story we're telling, that interacted with the story we're telling, and therefore probably play an important role that needs to be better understood. And the two civilizations I'm talking about are India and China. And China, I think people know a little bit about. India, we know almost nothing about. At least I know almost nothing about, other than they did some amazing stuff during certain periods in their history, like the development of algebra, the Arab, what's called the Arab numerical system, but really is the Indian numerical system, and the discovery, which is earth-shattering and from a mathematics, science perspective, changes everything, is the discovery of the number zero, and the use of the number zero. That is completely, that is completely striking. It's completely revolutionary. Anyway, I'm not going to talk about India and China because I don't know anything about India and China. They are kind of parallel civilizations. They ebb and flow within. They reach a certain height and they don't break through like the West does. And that's really the fundamental difference. And we can speculate why they don't break through like the West breaks through. But it would be pure speculation because I just don't know. And I don't know anybody who studied it. The West breaks through, and we can see why the West breaks through, and then maybe look to see if those things that led the West to break through exist in the India and in the China civilizations. And I think you'll find that they don't, and that's the causal relationship. Andrew says, Asian history is hard to evaluate philosophically. Aristotle didn't infiltrate, to my knowledge. But that's not true, right? So Aristotle was huge in Central Asia. He completely explains the Islamic Golden Age in Central Asia. And the Islamic Golden Age was primarily in Central Asia. And, Aristotle arguably makes it to India. I mean, partially because the Central Asians were in direct communication with India, but also direct communication with China. I don't know of evidence of his presence in China, although it's hard to believe. I mean, it's hard to believe that he wasn't, because given the communication between the Central Asians and China. But he certainly was in India, and of course, part of that, we don't. It's hard to tell how much of it, but part of it is because Alexander the Great, right, the conqueror, conquered all of Central Asia, made it into the Indus Valley, kind of the northern India, left a lot of Greeks throughout that area. Greeks were left there, including teachers, warriors, all kinds of people, who then settled. Many of them stayed and settled in that area. So Greek ideas were very much a part of Central Asia, and therefore I suspect India as well. Right. So again, what is this evolution? And we're not going to get very far today. Today will be kind of just the intro, and then we'll keep digging deeper in future shows. Man's quest to understand the world, to understand himself and to understand the world, to use his reason to discover knowledge, really that, and then to adapt his environment to fit his needs. It's to understand the world and to adapt nature, adapt the environment to fit man's needs. That is the process of civilization. That is the thread through civilization. We, manage the river system and turn it into, water for agriculture, and we start building cities, and we develop architectural abilities and knowledge in order to be able to live in a city. You start developing, even in the city, basic sewer systems, basic ways to bring water to a population that needs to drink. And then you have to think about transporting from the fields to the city. And now you have to think about different mechanisms of transportation. And again, you create political hierarchies, and that's the process. But that is all driven by a quest for knowledge, and a quest to apply that knowledge to changing the environment to fit your needs. That's what the story of humanity is about when it's successful. And you can see it improve with each successful civilization. Of course, part of that is using that knowledge and using those abilities to express yourself in for example, in art. So if you think about Mesopotamia, Egypt, or the biblical, land of Israel, or, the Jews, they are explaining the world, in terms of a very primitive approach to science and technology that gets them by, right? Gets them by in terms of agriculture and so on, but not more than that. And then beyond that, any kind of more abstract questions. Why are we here? What's the purpose? What is reality? How do we know reality? The kind of questions of metaphysics, epistemology, morality, and even questions of politics. Those are primarily defaulted to some form of religion. And defaulted in the sense of religion, it defaults to authority. And this is why these cultures have very hierarchical political structures. The hierarchy of knowledge comes down from God through his prophets, or through whoever speaks to him. It comes down in books. It comes down from the priests. That's where knowledge comes from. And at least when it comes to the abstract ideas, again, metaphysics, the philosophical ideas as we understand them today. Man can maybe figure out certain things about the actual physical world and make it work in his own behalf, but not much more than that. And of course, there's a cap to how much even there they can do. I mean, Greece's great achievement is that the Greeks start asking these big philosophical questions and not looking to the gods as an explanation for everything, although they still have gods. They now look to discover the truth about the nature of things. Not just how to manipulate things to get the water to where you want it to go, but to try to understand the very nature of the world around them. And as a consequence, they develop ideas about philosophy, the nature of reality, the nature of knowledge, what is good and what is bad, and politics. I mean, think about the achievement of relative economic freedom, at least for a certain portion of the population, under Athens, in Athenian democracy. Which is, I mean, think about that as compared to the strict hierarchy and that exists in an Egyptian or Mesopotamian or any of these societies where individuals have no voice in their own governance at all. So Greece is the first civilization, while entertaining religion, starts actually breaking free of it in a more systematic way, asking the big questions and looking to human reason to answer them. And most of the answers are wrong, right? But it's asking the questions that get people to start thinking so that we can get to right answers. And it's the idea that right answers are possible, available, and that we must use a proper method in order to discover them. So, Jason Ryan says a wonderful lecture on the Greek Enlightenment at Ocon this year. It's still not 2026. In 2025, I don't know if it's up online yet, but when it does come online on YouTube, you should definitely watch it if you haven't seen it already. And the only problem with this lecture, and it was a real problem, is that it's way too short. That is, he has so much material that it really should be a series of lectures. It should be a series of lectures on the Greek Enlightenment. And he talks about the great achievements in Greece. So it's not an accident that Greece is where you see these amazing discoveries in science, in astrology, in medicine, in understanding the world around us, in mathematics. And of course, with Aristotle, kind of a system to discover knowledge, the invention of science, the methodology of science, astronomy, not astrology, of course, astronomy. It's interesting that in ancient times, at least in the, and I don't know if this is true of Greece, but at least in the Muslim Golden Age, one of the great motivations to do astronomy was for the purpose of to do astronomy was for the purpose of astrology. They were real believers in astrology, and in order to determine what the stars tell you about your fate, about what is coming, you needed to actually figure out what the stars, where they were, and be able to make predictions about where they were going. So, astronomy was done to a large extent for the purpose of astrology. But astronomy, yes, I apologize for that confusion. So you get science. You get the use of that science now, at least in architecture. You even get to some extent the use of the science for art, for aesthetic purposes. And you can see the progress being made from Egypt to Greece, the explosion in science, the explosion in philosophy, the explosion in knowledge, and as a consequence, the cultural consequence of that is just a massive evolution in terms of art, and maybe the best preserved art that we can actually see and compare is in sculpture. And if you can see Greek sculpture and Egyptian sculpture, you can see how early Greek sculpture is very much mimicking Egyptian sculpture. And then it starts developing. It starts being better than Egyptian sculpture. It starts breaking through the bromide, the stiffness, the two-dimensionality, the repetition, and the immobility of Egyptian sculpture, and you start seeing a definitive, idealized, Greek sculpture evolving from that. And then you've got the classical Greek sculpture evolving into the Hellenistic Greek sculpture, where now there's movement and emotion. It's almost like the Romantic period of Greek civilization. And you see that. You see real motion. You see real passions. You see real emotions conveyed in marble and in bronze. And you can take just sculpture, and you can see the arc going from Egypt through the Hellenistic period in Greece, and you don't really get that in sculpture. What the Hellenists achieve, you don't get it again for over 1,400 years, and in a sense of emotional conveyance, maybe as much as 1,900 years. You don't get it until the 19th century. But you get it somewhat. You get it in the Renaissance and somewhat in the Baroque, and then you get it again in the 19th century. That dynamism, that action, but certainly you don't get it in Rome other than copies of what the Greeks did, and you don't get anything for 1,000 years in Christian Europe. So in many respects, civilization is breaking away from religion. It is the slow process, and it's slow, and it has to be slow, of relying less on the idea that knowledge comes to us from a mystical being or beings, and embracing more and more of the idea that knowledge is available to man. Knowledge is directly available to man, needs to use his reason to discover that knowledge, and then more and more and more of the universe comes under the category of things knowable to man. And then, of course, the use of that knowledge to improve man's life in this world. And you see in history, again, in the history of civilization, you see this process go from Mesopotamia, Egypt, and then, of course, Greece is when it takes the big leap forward. It changes everything. And, Greek civilization, to some extent, is starting to die already under the Roman Empire. It's not the same. It doesn't have the dynamism. It doesn't have the originality. It is weighted down by a kind of a cynicism and a skepticism that is part of Rome, and then what starts dominating Rome, and it starts dominating Roman ideology, is a return, in a sense, a backward-looking return to religion as explaining things. So there's a sense in which during the Roman Empire, during Rome's civilization, the beginning of the end of Roman civilization is as this civilization starts looking more and more to various religions, but predominantly, ultimately, Christianity, as the tool, the way to know the world. And of course, there are all kind of geopolitical reasons why Rome is destroyed. It's not that Christianity destroys it. But even if Rome is not destroyed by the barbarians, sacked by the barbarians, even if it continued along the path that it was going on, science was dying. Art was dying. Knowledge was dying. What was growing was the role of religion, the role of mysticism. I mean, to a large extent, it can be said that religion kills this civilization, and maybe it doesn't kill directly the Roman Empire. That has to do with a lot of other stuff. I mean, the people who literally sack Rome are Christians, but of course, at that point, Rome was also Christian, just Christians of different sects. I mean, the civilization of that period really peaks during the post-Aristotelian era, Aristotle, and then the post-Aristotelian era. But even then, it's dying even in Greece, as Athenian democracy has ended and the Macedonian Empire takes over, and Rome then, of course, conquers Greece and takes all of that period over. I mean, science and knowledge continues in Greece and then later in Alexandria, where libraries are built and great scientific projects and philosophical projects are engaged in, but it's decaying. It's on its way out. And it's on its way out at the same time as Christianity is gaining strength. And the reality is that when Christianity comes to dominate, civilization disappears. From 400 to 1400, I mean, there's some technological advances, but very few. The economy's in shambles. There's no architecture until the 12th century when you start getting cathedrals. But it's basically cathedrals. It's the only thing that can be built and is architecturally successful. There's no science. There's no science. There's no even astronomical, not astrological, astronomical observations. None. Christianity kills civilization. When Christianity dominates, where it is everywhere. Now, it hasn't given up on Greece, but it's taken what I would consider the worst of Greece. The Platonic mysticism, the Neoplatonic mysticism of the Greeks. When Christianity dominates, civilization dies. And then if you look, when Rome falls, the Byzantine Empire is still around, but the Byzantine Empire never reaches any dramatic heights of civilization. Yeah, they build some impressive buildings, and they still have fantastic libraries, and they preserve a lot of the, not everything, but a lot of the old Greek knowledge. And they have, there are periods in which they're successful in terms of conquest, and they're quite wealthy, certainly in compared to the Christian West. They are quite wealthy, primarily because they are connected in ways that the Christian West is not, to the trading routes all around, through Asia, to the Silk Road. And they're connected trade-wise, and they're connected within the Mediterranean. But the Byzantine Empire is stagnant. The Byzantine Empire is not a dynamic civilization. It is not improving. It is not getting better. It is not building. It is primarily a civilization, to the extent that it is even civilized, that is preserving. It's preserving the past. And that's its great virtue, is that it preserves, not destroys the past. Much of the past is destroyed in the West under Christianity. In the East, under Christianity, the past is at least preserved. But progress is minimal. The next civilizational boost forward, the next big explosion of knowledge, of science, of philosophy, of writing, even of art, at least in the sense of poetry and writing, less so in sculpture and painting, primarily because of the religion dominated there, comes out of the golden age of Islam. And the golden age of Islam is explicitly by the writings of the people during that period, is a building on Greek civilization. The golden age of Islam is very much the translation of Greek works into the dominant intellectual language of the time, Arabic, and it's the dominant lost my train of thought there. So what you get is a translation of the works of the Greeks. The one thing they don't translate, many of the plays are not translated. So the aesthetics is not really translated. But the philosophy is translated. Aristotle is translated. Most of Aristotle is translated. And then you get philosophers all over, particularly the eastern part of the empire, Central Asia, all the way to Baghdad, which is in Damascus, linking through there, you get real progress. So whereas the Byzantine Empire is stagnant intellectually, little is happening philosophically, scientifically. In the Muslim Empire, there's a certain excitement and thrill, and why it happens there and not elsewhere, that I don't know. But it happens. And I think it's not accidental that it happens in Central Asia. Central Asia is this hub of many cultures, multiculturalism. I mean, many cultural influences. It's got the influences of Indian civilization, the influences of Chinese civilizations, the strong influence of Greece. And during a period from, I don't know, the 8th century to the 11th, 12th centuries, you get a great flourishing civilization. I mean, major astronomical observations, observatories being established to study the stars. You get major progress in mathematics, medicine, at a period where the Christian West, there's zero going on with medicine. There is zero going on in astronomy. There is zero going on in science. What you see in this area that is being flooded by Greek ideas is huge developments in all these areas. And for whatever reason, a willingness of the Islamic authorities, at least for a period of about 300 years, to tolerate this, to allow it. I mean, it's diminishing over time. They're willing to tolerate it less and less over time, and ultimately they're not willing to tolerate it at all, and it all goes away. But for a while there, it's flourishing. I mean, you get writers during this period even expressing atheistic ideas in philosophy. You suddenly get advocates for reason and science as explaining everything, and a very minimal role for a God, if any at all. But you also get a lot of Neoplatonists. You get just a wide variety of writers. But the thing that really is being pushed forward is mathematics and science, particularly science more broadly, and then in particular medicine. And ultimately, that knowledge that is created by these thinkers and philosophers, these translations of Aristotle and the Greeks and everything, ultimately, as the civilization in East Asia dies and Baghdad dies and the Mongols destroy the entire place, and it really never really recovers, but primarily because it becomes dominated by, guess what? I mean, if you really look at what it is that destroys the golden age of Islam, it's Islam. As Central Asia and Iraq become more and more dominated by Sufis are Islamic mystics, by the ideas of, on the one hand, Sufi mystics, on the other hand, strict obedience to the Islamic laws as passed on in the Quran and the Hadiths, the sayings of Muhammad, and a strict adherence to Islamic law, to Sharia, and a rejection of what of reason, of rationality, of science, which is explicit in people like Al-Ghazali. As Islam rises to dominate and suppress learning and suppress science and suppress reason, civilization dies. So Islam kills the Islamic civilization. And it keeps going for a little while in Andalusia in South Spain, where the libraries are thriving and where you have the last of the great philosophers and historians and thinkers and intellectuals of the Islamic world. The last of them are in Northern Africa and in southern Spain. And it's the fall of Constantinople, which leads a lot of Christians to flee to the West and bring with them the books of ancient Greece, the libraries, pieces of libraries. And it is the fall of Cordoba and, Toledo and Cordoba and the south of Spain, and the discovery by the Christians of the libraries. And even before the fall of those libraries, Christians were traveling to the south of Spain, even though the south of Spain was ruled by Muslims, and studying in those libraries and translating the Greeks from Arabic into Latin and bringing the books back to Paris and Bologna and to the West, and building the beginnings of a foundation of the rise of what we call Western civilization. And of course, Western civilization pushed the boundary ultimately even further. During the Renaissance, they are slowly shrugging off, peeling off religion. They are slowly marginalizing the role of religion and expanding the role for reason, expanding the role for the individual, expanding the role for individual discovering knowledge. And it first manifests itself in the arts and in philosophy, then it manifests itself in physics, in astronomy, and in other areas in physics. And ultimately, what you get is an explosion of the scientific revolution with Newton and the Enlightenment, an explosion in philosophy with John Locke and Enlightenment thinkers, which leads us to the prosperity we have today. But it's all one civilizing process, which touches different geographic areas. And what's unique about it is that it involves marginalizing religion, but it's not marginalizing religion for the sake of marginalizing religion. It is marginalizing religion to give space for reason. And as the efficacy of reason is discovered, appreciated, so greater and greater and greater scope is granted to reason, up to the point of reason can now guide our morality. Metaphysics, right? Reality is what it is, epistemology. We have reason to discover the truth, and reason can actually discover morality, which is Ayn Rand's discovery, but was hinted at during the Enlightenment. They're attempting to do it during the Enlightenment. They don't quite get it, but they're trying. They recognize that that's an important project. It's what's necessary to do. And that's the civilizing process. It's about the marginalizing of religion. And religion, and here the importance is that religion is fundamentally anti-civilization. It's anti-progress. Now, sure, you can have religious societies in which there is progress, because the meaning of religious society is that people are religious at home, but they're secular everywhere else. They're using reason everywhere else. But the more religion is dominant in terms of its epistemology and metaphysics in the culture, the less knowledge there is, the less progress there is, the less civilization there is. And the more religion is dominant in morality, in ethics, the less freedom there is. And therefore, the less prosperity there is. So the whole project of civilization is, in some sense, getting away from religion. And the more we bring it in, the more we lose that thing that is what makes us civilized. So civilization and religion are two opposing forces. I would say that religion is an anti-civilizational force. It's a reactionary force. It's not an accident that people like Michael Knowles want us to go back to 1220. They want to go backwards to an uncivilized period. 1220 is not civilized. It's by every measure of civilization. The only thing you can say that was being built that had any significance were cathedrals, and they don't actually have any significance for human life. The whole point of building a cathedral is to make you look small. It's to make human beings feel small. Even cathedrals, in a sense, are anti-civilizational forces because they're trying to elevate religion and a God above you. The civilizing process is a secularizing process. It is a process towards reason, towards individualism, towards ultimately capitalism and human flourishing. All right, we're going to call it there because I've already gone long and I've still got the song reviews to do, and we'll do those. We'll do those now, but to be continued. So there's a lot to say about this. There's a lot to say about every single aspect of this. I see John is at his insulting stupidity again, as usual. Civilization and the civilizing forces are fundamentally secular, even if they have compartments, they're places in their minds, in the culture, that are religious. It's the religion dragging you down. It's the secular dragging you up. And we're all we've never had a purely secular civilization. So we're constantly being pushed down, pulled up, pushed down, pulled up. Even in Greece, you had religion. Even Greeks were challenged by the fact that they believed in the gods. And to the extent that they believed in the gods, that was a force pulling them away from civilization. All right. Let's do this. I'm going to answer the questions that relate directly to this now. And by the way, we're reaching the end of the first hour, and we haven't made it to our target for the first hour, which is $250. So we're $49 short. With the last day of the month, I have a monthly target. We really need to make our targets today, and we're going to go beyond 2 hours today. So hopefully there's some people out there who are incentivized, motivated by the values they're receiving, assuming they're receiving any values. You know, John obviously isn't because he thinks I'm stupid. To trade with me, value for value. We need to get to some of these targets to get our monthly targets. All right. Let me just review the questions and see to see which ones are directly related. Okay, Andrew says, how would you respond to a conservative who acknowledges that reason is crucial for man's mind, but claims that faith is necessary for man's spirit? Yeah, I mean, look, Christians say that today. They didn't say that 1,000 years ago, but they say that today because 1,000 years ago, they would not acknowledge reason is crucial for man's mind. That's why they were so poor and so completely uncivilized at the time. Why there was no science, there was no progress, there was no architectural progress, there was no technological progress, there was nothing. There was stagnation because they enveloped reason, they rejected reason completely, whether explicitly or implicitly. So now, given the success of science and given the success of reason, they have embraced reason in part of life, up to a point, not too much, as long as we can manage it and as long as it doesn't intrude on our dogma. And now it's supposedly just good for your spiritual. What they mean by spiritual is that it's good for your, it's good for morality, right? It's important for morality, and it's important for achieving meaning and so on. And again, this is primitivism. This is the anti-civilizing. This is a rejection of philosophy. religion as it's a primitive philosophy. All the claims religion has made in terms of morality and in terms of spirituality have been rebuted by philosophers for hundreds of years now. Religion has no claim over any aspect of our lives. It has no claim that cannot be, made by reason. It doesn't have any exclusivity over any realm. In any realm where it makes a claim, well, by what standard? How do we know this? And it's always a religious claim, which means a claim ungrounded in reality and therefore easy to reject. Morality can be established on reason, as Ayn Rand has shown. What realm of spirituality it requires belief in some omnipotent, omniscient, whatever being on a book written thousands of years ago that claims to have knowledge about and turns out to be wrong on pretty much everything and is self-contradictory? So it's just a false dichotomy. It's a mind-body split that doesn't exist. Mind and body are integrated. It is, there's no positive argument. I mean, you'd have to make an argument of why only religion can explain spirituality. I mean, meaning comes from your own values and your own goal in life, and the primary meaning of life is to live. Again, morality can be induced from man's life and the requirements of man's life. What realm, aesthetics, art is incredibly spiritual, but can be understood by understanding man's nature, his conceptual nature, his need for the concretization of his abstract ideas, and the nature of art. So every one of the so-called spiritual or mystical or beyond reason claims religion makes, you can actually ground in an understanding of reality and understanding of the nature of man. In other words, in reason. Shazbot says, Rebel number 1, what have Romans ever given us? Rebel number 2, the aqueduct. Life of Brian. Yeah, the aqueduct is pretty cool. It's pretty amazing technology for the time. I mean, for 1,000 years, there was none of it. It disappeared. That ability to move water. Somebody says, so Yaron Brook is not a religious person. No, I'm an atheist. Pretty much always been an atheist since the age of 6. So no, I reject religion completely. Okay, we'll do that later. That is getting married, today's academic climate, kids, education, visiting Italy. I'm looking for questions related to this topic, anti-Semitism. All right, that's market collapse. Something else. Is it actually a good thing millennials are getting married? Something else. 1 second. Oh yeah, here's John says, if Christianity ended the Roman Empire, why did the Eastern Empire last until 1453, which was more religious than the West? You're making stuff up. As I said, I did not say Christianity ended the Roman Empire. I was careful not to say that. It was a contributing factor. There's no question about that. And I said it was actually sacked by other Christians. Christians sacked Christians. And I said, John, you just don't listen. I said that, geopolitics ultimately determined the sack of Rome, the fact that it couldn't defend its borders, the fact that, these Germanic tribes were being pushed west, these Germanic tribes that were converting to Christianity, the barbarians were all Christian. So Christianity contributed. It contributed to stagnation in Rome. It contributed to stagnation in the West and in the East. It contributed to, the Byzantine Empire stagnation. and the Byzantine Empire's lack of capabilities to actually grow and flourish and be successful. It expanded and shrunk and expanded and shrunk, all based on military successes here and there, and it maintained its wealth primarily because it was directly connected to the Silk Road and didn't suffer from the kind of fragmentation. It got lucky because, the barbaric tribes were much more focused on moving west than they were coming south. And because of geography, because it was much easier to defend Constantinople than it was to defend Rome for a variety of reasons. So there are a variety of historical, geopolitical reasons why the Byzantine Empire continued, but it continued as a Christian empire, and therefore wasn't successful, and I wouldn't call it a civilization. It wasn't. Again, it was a stagnant place. It was not a place of development. It didn't achieve a Renaissance or Enlightenment or anything really. Science pretty much stagnated there. It flourished in the Muslim world. It didn't flourish in Constantinople. It didn't flourish in the Byzantine Empire. Art declined in if you compare Greek declines into Roman. Roman is basically copying Greece, and then from Rome, sculpture and art declines when it comes to the Byzantines. You just don't get a thriving, Alexandria once the Roman Empire falls and Byzantine survives. So yeah, Christianity in of itself continues in the form of an empire in Byzantine, but not in the form of a civilization. Not if civilization means growth, improvement, more increasing knowledge, increase in understanding of the world around us. It decays. It stagnates. That is the essence of the Byzantine Empire. There's very little that happens. Again, it's only picked up, that growth of civilization is only picked up in the Islamic Golden Age, and that dies once Islam becomes dominant. And then it has, there's still attempts at new knowledge here and there, like under the Ottoman Empire. They build an observatory, and then the religious authorities decide that is no good and it's inconsistent with Islam, and they tear it down. So Islam kills civilization just in the same way the Christianity kills civilization. It's a destroyer of the civilized. And then John has a second obnoxious question. Let's see. Newton and Locke were Christians. Are you stupid? Yeah, I know they were Christians. I mean, I know it'll shock you, John, but I actually know that they were Christians. But their achievements are not Christian. Their achievements are anti-Christian. I mean, Newton, what he discovers, he's not discovering out of the Old Testament or the New Testament. What he discovers, is new knowledge based on reason, not on revelation, based on observation and math and induction and the scientific method, not based on revelation. So Newton and Locke are incredibly compartmentalized. They can hold religion in one compartment, and they can do their other work in a different compartment. But to the extent that the compartment that held religion in it grew, to try to explain, to use that knowledge, the religious knowledge, to try to explain the physical world, Newton could have never done what he did. To the extent that Locke would have allowed religious knowledge to extend into the ideas, the political ideas he had, he could have never developed them. There's no individual rights in the New Testament. There's no political liberty in the New Testament. There's no religious tolerance in the history of Christianity. Indeed, Locke is writing just after the horrific bloodbath of the 30-Year War, where Protestants and Catholics are slaughtering each other. So the idea that Locke and Newton are Christian, and that's what allows them to achieve their achievements is ignorant. What do you call it? Stupid. It is stupid, John. So yes, they hold on to that. It holds them back. Newton could achieve so much more if he'd be willing to challenge that belief philosophically. But they also live in a time where almost nobody's challenging that belief. It's really hard to challenge that belief. You get really persecuted if you challenge that belief. As it is, Newton held ideas about Christianity that were very unconventional. Like, I think he rejected the Trinity and kept those ideas to himself. So, yeah, let's see. NM. Can it become arbitrary to decide in advance that any good must come from secular side and any bad must be religious side? Well, yeah, if you just decide that out of the blue. But if you look at what brings about the good, right? What process led us to discover the laws of physics? The application of reason to moving bodies, to the system, the stars above us, scientific observation, induction, the scientific method, all things that are secular. If you look at art, what led during the Renaissance to the identification of perspective and getting perspective right? I'm sorry, Wanda Freeman, it's not imagination. Imagination is good for writing science fiction novels. But what leads to great scientific discoveries is induction, is genius and induction. It's observation. It's seeing the world and inducing from it. Induction is the fundamental way in which we know the world. And I know that is a source of disagreement, but that is reality. I just don't understand people, not getting that. If you see a child and how a child learns, you can see him inducing. You can see him inducing. He doesn't have imagination. He's not testing out theories. He's seeing things in the world, and then he's saying, okay, let's see if that happens again, and let's see if that happens again, and then inducing a principle from that. Children, everything they learn through a process of, observation, experimentation, and induction. The simplest concepts are derived from that. So if you look at perspective, how did they come about perspective? Why was perspective introduced into art during the Renaissance and not before, not in the age of Christianity, when Christianity dominated all spheres of life? Because that's the point in which we're looking at reality. We're trying to understand reality. We're developing mathematics. We're studying geometry. We're using reason to understand the world. And perspective is a consequence of using reason to look at spatial reality and using geometry to figure out how it all lays out. So, everything that is good is a consequence of the use of reason, of the use of observation, of the use of scientific method and induction. In any realm, if you look at political liberty comes from the recognition not of religious commandment, but a recognition of the sanctity of the individual human being, of the value, the worth of an individual human being. And what kind of society makes it possible for the individual human being to thrive and to live well? A society which extracts force from it, which does not allow people to deal with one another through violence. You see that in Locke. Arguments derived by reason from observations in reality. You start with observation and you reason from that. So all the good comes from that. And bad. violence, dogma, blind obedience, all come from religion. All come from religion. And they come from religion which negates reason. They cripple your mind. They tell you, don't use reason in this realm. You can use it over there, but don't use it in this realm. And any realm where you don't use reason is a realm of decay, stagnation, retrograde, going backwards, and ultimately destruction. So you can say, not arbitrary, but you can say based on the facts, that one process, a process based on reason, leads to progress, and one process, a process based on faith, leads to, decay. All right. Karl Meisenbach says, I think you're going too easy on religion. It cripples the minds of kids with horrible philosophy. Yeah, I mean, look, I'm not trying to talk about all the evils of religion. I'm trying to put it in the context of civilization. And the idea of of religion being a drag on civilization, of religion being a counterweight to civilization, a counterforce to civilization. And the more you take religion seriously, the less civilized you become. And you see that in the Muslim world, you see that in the Christian world, you will see that in any world. In any world, you will see that. Whenever religion rises, civilization decays. And I don't know of any example in history. So I'm not talking about all the different ways in which religion cripples the mind. That would be a different lecture, a different show, a different program. All right, Real Spark. The world advances with Western civilization despite the slave trade, but do you see any good things came out of Eastern civilization, African civilization, Indigenous civilization? Very little that I know of came out of Indigenous civilizations or African civilization, although if you consider Egypt African civilization, then for its time and place, it moved the needle forward. It moved us. I don't know if you get Greece without Egypt, right? These civilizations are not discrete. They don't stand on their own. They're constantly communicating with one another. They're constantly engaged. So, yes, certainly Egypt, to the extent it's a African civilization, had a huge impact on Greek civilization, which had a huge impact on Western civilization. Western civilization does not arise out of nothing. It's not out of a void. And then if you say Eastern civilization, then absolutely. I mean, the concept of the number zero, the whole numerical system that we used, it comes out of Eastern civilization, India in this case. The printing press, which is so crucial to the Renaissance and to the Enlightenment, to the spreading of ideas, into the expansion of civilization, starting in the 15th century, and onward. That's invented in China. Gunpowder is invented in China. Silk comes from China. So much came from China in terms of the material that was then used by the West to build on. So Chinese civilization definitely added. Indian civilization definitely added. Egyptian civilization definitely added. It's a cumulative effect. Western civilization doesn't come out of nowhere. It comes from knowledge passed to it from the past. And Greece doesn't come out of nowhere. Greece exists because of knowledge that it gains from Africa, i.e. Egypt, Mesopotamia, even India or Central Asia that flows. I mean, people were trading and therefore interacting and therefore engaging in a exchange of ideas pretty much since the beginning of time. Paul, right. Thomas Aquinas separated them into reason and the divine, which had a profound effect on the development of humanism. Yes, I mean, Aquinas at least separates realms, which is the divine and which is the reason, the one left for reason. But to the extent, and ultimately Aquinas is wrong because there's only one realm, and that is the realm of reason. There is no realm of divine. But in those areas where you have where he identifies reason as the guide, that's where you get development. That's where you get progress. And everything else is stilted in the realm that's supposed to be the divine. And we keep chopping away at that, and that's where you get expansive and increase. Let's see. Nick says, I recently came across the claim that the medievals viewed the Bible more figuratively than literally thoughts. There were thinkers throughout that thought of the Bible more figuratively, but that was a constant conversation within the Catholic Church, is how to address the Bible, and to what extent was it literal, and to what extent was it figurative, and that is a conversation which you constantly have. But the people who are for the literal won that debate, at least until kind of the Renaissance, or until late. For a long time, thinkers who thought it was just figurative were persecuted by the church, by the authorities of the church. But yeah, I mean, that's a conversation that always happens. Happens within Judaism, happens within Christianity. It doesn't solve the problem. Even if it's figurative towards what? What is the truth that it's still conveying truth? Maybe not literal truth, but still conveying truth. Is there truth in the books because they were written by God or by somebody inspired by God? John, do you agree with objectivists who say Ayn Rand was morally perfect? Isn't that semi-religious? What were her flaws? I don't know. I mean, I don't know. I didn't know her. I didn't know her personally. I don't find that interesting at all. She's not a god. She shouldn't be treated like a god. But on the other hand, she, was our teacher and was a great philosopher and a great thinker. And I think, based on everything that I know about her life, that she lived to the best of her ability a life based on a philosophy. She practiced what she preached, and she lived it. And I think she lived a successful, happy life. I don't know what morally perfect means. Did she never evade, ever, on any issue, ever, I don't know. I wasn't there. But she was amazing. She was an amazing human being. I mean, this idea of, you should strive for your own moral perfection. Stop trying to judge other people. You don't know if they're morally perfect. You don't know when and what they evade and where they evade and how they evade. So, it's hard enough to figure out and to strive for your own, to evaluate yourself. All right. Linda says, based on this show, you're going to love Quincodier's adultery novels on your shelf. Yes, they are on my shelf. I saw them on my shelf the other day. They're right there. Not on this shelf. They're in the bookshelf over there where the fiction is. Andrew says, paraphrasing Rand, you don't adopt atheism because of a lack of a God, but because you accept reason as an absolute. Is this valid correlation? One doesn't get to atheism by being a cynic, but by being a scientist. Well, I don't know. I mean, look, I don't think that's a real dichotomy, right? I became an atheist at the age of 6. It would be ridiculous to say I was a scientist at the age of 6. It would even be ridiculous to say that I somehow explicitly accepted reason at the age of 6. I found the story of religion ridiculous. I thought it was silly. It didn't make any sense to me, so I abandoned it. It wasn't that I had a rigorous methodology of reason that I was judging it by. So the thing is that people were telling me this is the way things are, and I looked at it and I said, that doesn't make any sense to me. I don't get it. and I just walked away from it. It wasn't even a deliberate, thought out decision. It was just a rejection of fantasy for being fantasy. So I didn't experience discovering reason and then using reason to figure, oh, well, it's that there's a sense in which my modus operandi was reality-oriented. And if you're reality-oriented, then you never, you never really attracted by something that is, by definition, detached from reality. All right, let's do these. Let's do these. What is this? All right. Let's do these music reviews. So, I'm way behind on these. I promised them a long time ago. So let's go through them, and let me give you all the caveats that I do about these, right? You guys paid me to do these, but the reality is that I don't know really anything about popular music. I mean, other than what I like. And so what I tell you, and I know, and I'm not a musicologist, so I can't in detail break down a piece of music and tell you what it is about it that I like or don't like, or what it is about it that I think is good or not good. I can give you my impressions. So this is my personal opinion. This is not objectivism. This is not the objectivist position on any of these, God forbid, right? This is Yaron's reaction to these songs, and sometimes to their lyrics, to the extent that their lyrics have meaning. And that's basically it. So don't attribute to me some depth here. There's no depth. This is just for fun. This is just entertainment. And as long as you pay me to do this, I'll do it. But it's of some value, I guess, for you guys if you're interested in what I think about things. All right, we will start. The first song that I was asked to review. Now, I can't play you the music, unfortunately, because I can't play you the music because of copyright issues. YouTube freaks out if I play other people's songs on my show. So I can't play you, but you can go listen to them if you want. So, but the first song is One by Metallica. And I think this was Shazbot who asked me to review this a long time ago. One by Metallica. Oh, let me do this. I do have the lyrics for all the songs available here, so you can see the lyrics. We'll scroll down them a little bit. But this is obviously it's Metallica, so it's heavy metal. This is a real, it's an anti-war movie. It's an anti-war song. It is based on, what's it based on a play or a book, on a novel, I guess. Johnny Got His Gun by Dalton Trumbo. It's about a horrific case of somebody going to war, losing his limbs and losing his face, and then what's the point of being alive? It's an angry song. I mean, this is true of most of Metallica's music, right? The angry, the rebellious, the rising up against. It is a song, that is anti-war. And, look, we're talking about, this is the voice of this guy who's just had his whole body blown to smithereens. And to that extent, yeah, I mean, there's a line that says, nothing is real but pain. Yeah, I get that. All he has is pain, and it can't be stopped. And all he wants is to die. I mean, hold my breath as I wish for death. Oh, please, God, wake me. And by waking, he means kill me, put me into this other world. Back in the womb, it's much too real. in pumps life that I must feel, but can't look forward to reveal. Look to the time when I'll live, fed through the tube that sticks in me, just like a wartime novelty, tied to machines that make me be. Cut this life off from me. I mean, super depressing, super angry. I mean, I can't say I enjoy a song like this. I get it. I get the anger. I get the frustration. I get the wishing to kind of make it an anti-war. This is what war does to people. But all these anti-war songs, they never. What's the alternative? You know, what causes war? Where does war come from? There's never any of that. There's just yelling and screaming and the existential angst that comes from this. Now, in terms of music, the melody's pretty simple. It's driven by a beat, like most rock music, and certainly heavy metal. The voice is angry, so the singer is definitely conveying the emotion of the song, and they do that well. There are pretty instrumentals throughout, so there's quite a few instrumentals that have a melody and are quite pretty. But there's a voiceover constantly from the movie, based on the novel, and that is always distracting. So anything pretty, anything that leads you to a positive emotion is constantly crushed by this voiceover, by this reality of this horror that this song is conveying. So does it convey the horror well? Does it convey the horror well? Yeah. So in that sense, it conveys horror well. It's not the kind of music I want to listen to. And it doesn't have any complexity. That's the other thing. It's angry. It conveys horror. But there's no complexity. There's no subtlety. There's no varying emotion. There's one emotion throughout: anger. Even when there's an attempt to something else, it gets crowded out by this sound overlay that's played over it that makes it go away. So, yeah, I'm not a particular fan of Metallica for among those reasons. Okay, we get another second song also by Sabbath, is also a anti-war song, but this is from a completely different perspective. This anti-war song is more political. This is an anti-war song from Black Sabbath. This is War Pigs. And this is a song against the generals and the politicians and the culture that sends men to die and blow themselves up, and they benefit from they make money off of it. This is more about politics. This is more from the hippies' perspective, an anti-war song sung by hippies who have no clue about war and don't know anything about war other than what they read about in the newspaper. Generals gathered in their masses, just like witches at black masses. Evil minds that plot destruction, sorcerer of death's construction. In the fields, the bodies burning, as the war machine keeps turning. Death and hatred to mankind, poisoning their brainwashed minds. Oh Lord, yeah. Now I get it. The anti-war theme. I'm all for anti-war, but there has to be more than that. And again, what dominates this is anger. Anger. It's dark. There's no out. There's no solution. It's very powerful. The music is powerful. The use of the electric guitar, the drums, it's very drum heavy. So there's a lot of power, there's a lot of drama. Again, the music fulfills the content of the song. That is, it's anti, it's crushing, it's defeating, it's angry, it's politicians hide themselves away. They only started the war. Why should they go out to fight? They leave that to the poor. Yeah. Time will tell on their power minds, making war just for fun, treating people just like pawns in chess. Wait till the judgment day comes. Yeah. Where does the judgment day come from? I guess, God. Nobody knows, right? Now in darkness, world stops turning, ashes where their bodies burning. No more war pigs have the power. Hand of God has struck the hour. Day of judgment, God is calling. On their knees, the war pigs crawling, begging mercies for their sins. Satan laughing, spreading his wings. Oh, Lord, yeah. So no solutions, nothing out of it. The war pigs are crushed, but, so what? Yeah, you get the power. You get the anger. I mean, this is an era of hard rock and metallic rock and all of that is very angry and very upset at the world and lots of social commentary. This is Black Sabbath, I think, is a British band. The fear of getting dragged into the war and not wanting to go to Vietnam. So this is an anti-Vietnam war. So there's no beauty here. There's no alternative. There's no aesthetically pleasing elements. Yeah, there's a melody there somewhere. Yes, there's some great riffs in that final sequence, which is quite long. I think 5 minutes, but it's quite pretty. But in the end, again, it's kids who are angry. They don't understand. They're ignorant. And they're just yelling into a microphone in great frustration about the world in which they live with no solutions and can see no beauty, can see no positives in the world around them. I mean, and the words are okay, but there's no great sophistication in either the previous lyrics or these lyrics. They're straightforward. Hate the man. Hate pigs, hate the cops, hate war, hate the politicians, hate the generals. All right, get it. We get it, right? I lived through this period. This is my music, if you will. This is the 70s. This is when all this music was written. This is what I lived through. All right, now we're going to something completely different, and I mean completely different. This is John. This is from John, and this is Taylor Swift. And this is Shake It Off. Shake It Off, which is a huge hit. I don't know, sold 5.4 million copies. Just in the first 5 years it was out. This is 2014. Just huge. Taylor Swift, of course, is huge. And I'm sorry, but this is I don't know. This is nothing. There's nothing here. This John Glue, I'm not sure I'm pronouncing his name right, but he put a lot of money into these songs, and I feel horribly that I haven't given these reviews because it's probably a year ago. It's at least a year since he did this. There's just nothing in this song. It's upbeat. It's super rhythmical. It's boom, 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 boom. There's a simple beat. I find it super boring. I can't listen. I mean, I listened to the whole thing twice. I watched the video. Video is boring. I get what's going on here. Shrug off your small problems. Come and party with me. Let's party. Don't take life too seriously. Let's party. Let's have a good time. Let's play. That's the lyrics, right? I stay out too late. What is it? Got nothing in my brain. That's true. Got nothing in my brain. That's what people say. That's what people say. I got too many dates. Ha, but I can't make them stay. At least that's what people say. That's what people say. But I keep cruising. That is, she doesn't care about what people say. Can't stop moving. It's like I got this music in my mind saying I'm going to be all right. But this is candy. It's like eating a little bit of sugar, and it's just, there's no emotional depth here. There's nothing interesting about this. And musically, I don't know. If there was a musicologist on, maybe I could ask him. But there's just nothing musically of any value here other than uplifting and a beat to dance to, to shake your booty to. I don't know. Boom, boom, boom. That's it, right? Because the player's got to play. I mean, even the lyrics are silly. They're just not interesting. So I just, I just don't get it. I don't get the appeal. But this is true of everything. If I open the radio today and listen to songs, I just find musically, they just have nothing. It's just shallow musicality. So I didn't like it. I found it boring. I found this one boring. All right, another Taylor Swift song. Whoops, I don't want that. There. This one's called "The Man." Now, this one at least is a little bit more interesting. This is kind of a feminist song. It's a song about if I did all the things that I do, if I was a man, how would they be perceived? What could I get away with that I can't get away with as a woman if I was a man? So it has a little bit more. I would be complex. I would be cool. They'd say I played the field before I found someone to commit to. And that would be okay for me to do, right? As a woman, it's not okay for her to play the field. But as a man, it would be okay for her to do. Every conquest I made would make me more of a boss to you. I'd be a feared leader. I'd be an alpha type. When everyone believes you, what's that like? I'm so sick of running as fast as I can, wondering if I'd get there quicker if I was a man, right? So this is kind of the thing. Would I advance more? Would I progress more? Would I achieve more if I was a man? I think a lot of women think this who are pursuing careers. And I'm so sick of them coming at me again, because if I was a man, then I'd be the man. I'd be the man. I'd be the man. Think about her, how much she was attacked for supposedly her promiscuity. If she was a man, she would never be attacked for that, right? They'd say I hustle, put in the work. They wouldn't shake their heads and question how much of this I deserve. What I was wearing, if I was rude, could all be separated from my good ideas and power moves. So I get the sentiment of the song. I like the sentiment of the song. It is a cleverness to it. I like the lyrics generally. But again, there's no musical value here. There's just nothing of interest. It's boring. Again, it's uplifting. You can dance to it. But it doesn't move me emotionally. It doesn't cause me any kind of spiritual experience. I don't, and this is the thing. I mean, the first songs I get that anger, and these songs I get, I don't know, sugar. I don't get anything really. It's shallow emotionally, and art needs to move you. Art needs to cause you to experience something, to really experience a strong emotion and a strong sense of being, and to take you into a different world and take you into a different universe. This doesn't. It kind of, I don't know. All right, more. This again from John. These are all from John. This is Miss You, I Miss You by Incubus. I don't know if I'm pronouncing that right, but Incubus. All right, so this is a simple love song. It's really nice. The lyrics are nice. Nothing sophisticated here. To see you when I wake up is a gift I don't think could be real. I didn't think could be real. I know that you feel the same as I do. Is a threefold utopian dream. You do something to me that I can't explain. So would I be out of line if I said I miss you? I see your picture. I smell your skin on the empty pillow next to mine. You have only been gone 10 days, but already I'm wasting away. I know I'll see you again, whether far or soon, but I need you to know that I care and I miss you, miss you. Simple, straightforward, nothing sophisticated, fine. I mean, not great poetry, but okay, it's expressing a clear sentiment. The thing I have with this song is I find the music in the background and the style of the singing completely in dissonance with the words. It doesn't come across as romantic. It doesn't come across as emotional. The music doesn't convey longing. It doesn't convey missing. The melody is weird. The singing style is weird. There's no emotion. It's stiff. It's cold. It completely fails as art, in my view. I mean, whereas the first two songs, Metallica and Black Sabbath, they're angry, and you get anger. At least you get what they want you to get. Here, the words are saying one thing, longing, love, and the music does not match it. There's no matching. Very frustrating, very frustrating. So I don't like Incubus. Because of this, and here's another. So the music seems dissonant, in dissonance with the topic. The melody is, again, weird, no emotion to it. And then the second song by them, so you also had me do this song, which is called Warning. Again, the lyrics are pretty good. They're about, what's so wrong with being happy, right? Or there's something about, I suggest we learn to love ourselves before it's made illegal. So, bat your eyes, girl, be otherworldly, count your blessings, seduce a stranger. What's so wrong with being happy? Kudos to those who see through sickness, yeah. Oops. Over and over and over and over, whatever. When she woke in the morning, she knew that her life had passed her by, and she called out a warning, don't let her life pass you by. I suggest we learn to love ourselves before it's made illegal. When we learn, when will we learn? When we will change? When will we change? Just in time to see it all fall down. So there's real pessimism here, as well as this call out for something positive. Those left standing will make millions, writing books on the way it should have been. When she woke in the morning, she knew that her life had passed her by. We read that already. And then floating in this cosmic jacuzzi, we are like frogs oblivion to the water, starting to boil. No one flinches. We all float face down. And then back to don't let life pass you by. So it's a call to take life and live it. And an acceptance of the fact that probably won't happen, that life will pass you by. But again, I find the music to be incredibly dissonant, the singing to be unemotional. I don't like the way he sings. I guess I just don't like Incubus. And I find it really, dissonant and unconnected and not satisfying at all. Not satisfying at all. So the music is just the melodies. You need melody. And you need a somewhat complex melody. You need a real melody. And you can't have a melody that's just underlined by a beat, and that's all it is beat, 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 beat with a... I mean, yesterday, my wife and I watched a documentary on Paul Simon. I mean, Simon and Garfunkel had some unbelievably beautiful melodies. Just gorgeous. Give me a beautiful melody anyway, any day. I mean, those melodies and, Sound of Silence or what do you call it? Well, anyway, there were a bunch of them, right? And then Paul Simon's career afterwards, just beautiful. I'll take a melody any day over a beat, over dance, over anger, over any of these things. And you can convey real ideas. I mean, Simon and Garfunkel's songs, whether the Sound of Silence or in the corner stands a boxer and a fighter by his name, the boxer. I mean, there's real ideas there. There's real meaning. There's a real there's even existential angst in the boxer. But the melody is so beautiful that you're intrigued, you're drawn in, and it causes you to think about the song. You actually think about it. Same with Bob Dylan. You can listen to Bob Dylan's song. There's poetry, and there's a beautiful melody that is carrying it, that's carrying the poetry, and it causes you to think about it. It causes you to actually engage with the words that are being said. With Incubus, the music is distancing me from the words that they're saying, so it's rejecting it. All right, finally, a classic. I think this is, again, Shahzad. This is Freebird by Lynyrd Skynyrd. This is a classic of classical rock. from the 1970s. This is 1973. This is a classic hippie song. This is about the whole sense of freedom is really freedom from responsibility. Freedom is really freedom from being attached to a person. Freedom is just this idea of just leaving and just going. If I leave here tomorrow, would you still remember me? For I must be traveling on now because there's too many places I've got to see. If I stay here with you, girl, things just couldn't be the same because I'm as free as a bird now. And this bird you cannot change. And the bird you cannot change, and the bird you cannot change. Bye-bye, girl. It's been a sweet love, yeah. Though this feeling I can't change, but please don't take it so badly because Lord knows I'm to blame. So, simple lyrics, basically a hippie song about just wanting to wander, just going out there and wandering and leaving and not being committed and not being attached and not to things, not to people, not to anything really. That is the song. Now, this is a song that, it's a classic rock song. It's got a melody. It's melodic. There's certainly parts of it. It's pretty long, 7, 8, 9 minutes. But it's quite enjoyable and melodic. It's got a great 5-minute guitar closing riff thing that is pretty cool. The electric guitar there and what it does with the rhythm and the beat. So yeah, it's a cool song. I once in a while enjoy listening to it. Again, it's 73, so it was I was 12, but it's kind of the music that I grew up on. I enjoy it. I much prefer Lynyrd Skynyrd to Black Sabbath or to Metallica, who are angry and yelling at you. This has a certain beauty to it and a certain longing for this kind of freedom to it. I get that. It's light, it's fun, it's good. Again, I can't listen to too much of this. There's not a lot of emotional complexity here. It's a single tone, single emotion song, even though it's long. It has those nice guitar riffs, which are fun to have. It's the kind of music I can listen to periodically and enjoy, but not something I can get a steady diet of. I would get bored with it. All right. Those are my music reviews, my song reviews. Next week, I hope to have Blackadder, Star Trek, and Andor, at the very least, done for you. So, and if you want me to review more songs, if you get any value out of this, it's $100 per song, I think. $250 for an episode of a TV series, $500 for a movie or short book. So that's what it's like. If we want to restart the reviewing process now that I'm committed to getting through them and getting actually done. So, yeah. All right. Thanks, guys. Thanks to all of you who contributed to that. That was a lot of fun. Let me just quickly remind you that at the end of January 30th to February 2nd, there will be a conference, a Rand's Day Weekend Objectivist Conference in Fort Myers, Florida. I'll be there. Harry will be there. Ellen Canner, Shoshana Milgram, Gene Maroney, Peter Schwartz, Don Watkins. There'll be a panel with me and Harry and Peter talking about how would we solve problems in a laissez-faire society, like roads and stuff, the poor, I don't know, whatever. So great event, lots of socializing, lots of great people. Come, and prices are going up December 30th, so sign up. You can do so at Rands, with an S at the end, randsdaycon, all one word, randsdaycon.thebvh.com. randsdaycon.thebvh.com. They should come up with a simpler URL. I really think that is a difficult URL. All right, anyway, join us. It'll be a lot of fun. All right, back to Super Chat, and then off to dinner. All right. Oh, one other thing for those of you online right now. My son is looking for work. Might as well use my show to see if anybody has a job for him. So he's a software engineer, and he lives in the LA area, so he's particularly interested in something in the LA area or that he can do remotely. If you're looking for a software engineer, you can find his details on LinkedIn. You go to LinkedIn, put in Niv, N-I-V, Brook. I think he's the only NIV Brook in the world. So NIV Brook. Yeah, if you have a company, if you have a project, if you have something that you need a software engineer for, be great. Interview him. Don't hire him based on my word, but at least give him a shot by interviewing him. Nick says, Neve, really good guy. He is a really, 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 really good guy. So I can say that about Neve. So check him out on LinkedIn, or if you don't know how to get in touch with him or something like that, just send me an email at yaron@yaronbrookshow.com and I'll put you in touch. But yeah, if anybody has any kind of work related to software engineering, then yeah, let me know. Let him know. He worked. His last job was at Amazon. He was a software engineer at Amazon for what, 3 years, something like that, 2-3 years. All right. Okay, we're just going to do these by order. We're going to start with $20. We're $91 short of the goal. So $91. I really want to make that $500 goal, which we've only got 3 minutes to make. We've got 3 minutes to get to 91. So somebody needs to do a sticker for $100 or question for $100 so we can get there quickly. But it would be great if you guys help me get to the goal for the month, which is going to require us to get at least the $91, if not a little bit more than that. Probably $191 to really get there. But 91 is a good start. So let's try to get to the $500. We're at 409 now. I'd really, really, really appreciate it. Trade value for value. In particular, if there are people out there, if there are any sharks, any of you Yaron Brook sharks who can do $100 or $50 or $20 question, that would be amazing. Four $20 questions would get us a long way there. All right, Doctor. Whoops, what did I just do? Undo. All right, Doctor says, what do you say to someone who feels guilty buying from Amazon Marketplace because Amazon forces the smaller partners to charge less? Why does he care? I mean, the Amazon Marketplace, the smaller partners get an opportunity to sell to millions of people. And if they didn't get on Amazon, they couldn't access the customers that they access. They would make a lot less money. And by the way, they are there out of a choice. They could have tried to sell on other platforms. They could have tried to sell independently. Amazon, they should be so thankful to Amazon for providing them with this amazing platform and with the payment mechanisms and all the benefits you get from buying on Amazon to grow their customer base and to grow their visibility in the world out there. So I'd say, get a life, get over it. Stop feeling sorry for people actually pursuing their own self-interest and maximizing their own lives by working with Amazon. They're much happier about it than you are. And instead of going out there and supporting them by buying stuff from them, you want to penalize them by boycotting Amazon. It's completely upside down. Completely upside down. And of course, they're not forced to pay less. They're expected to pay less or get paid less or whatever it is. It's voluntary. That nobody puts a gun to their head. If they don't want to work on Amazon, they can go on there's plenty of other platforms. Lots of people sell on eBay and lots of people just sell directly. You don't have to be on Amazon. You choose to be on Amazon. And there's a cost to it. And you do the trade-off and you decide, yeah, Amazon is worth it. That's why I'll join Amazon. And you want to penalize people for that. That doesn't make any sense. Wes, thank you, Wes. I watched the movie A Most Violent Year yesterday, based on your recommendation. Great film with a businessman of integrity. Yeah, I really like that film. It's very undertone, very kind of understated, the way it's filmed, the way it's acted, but really strong and really good philosophically and really good. And positive portrayal of a businessman. Thank you, Wes. I did a little review of the movie at some point. Andrew, paraphrasing Rand, you don't adopt. Oh, we did that already. We did that. Yeah, all right. Another Andrew, would you say that we live in a society of people more physically safe than in all of history, yet whose feelings are diametrically opposite to that, and your theory is that that is a result of placing emotions above reason? We certainly live in the most safe society in all of human history. I mean, violent death is way down, way down. In Europe, violent death is gone from about 40 per 100,000, which was at about the level of El Salvador before Bukele ended that. So just horrific, 40 per 100,000 to 1 per 100,000. The United States is maybe 4 to 5, 4 to 6 per 100,000, depending exactly where and when. But that's amazing progress. We feel bad, partially because we don't know. We don't know history. We know nothing about the past. We don't know how bad life could be and how bad life has been. And because we're overly emotional, but mostly it's because we're ignorant and because our news, our media, our culture emphasizes the negative over and over and over again. This is part of Christian guilt, right? It can't be this good. Something must be wrong. We can't be this rich just and that's it. There has to be some bad stuff, and therefore the bad stuff is emphasized over and over and over again and elevated and repeated and over and over again. So it is we live in a culture of negativity, and partially it's, I think, out of a sense of guilt that, wait a minute, what did we do to deserve all this? And that's Christian guilt. It's also just a certain malevolence that our secular philosophy has ingrained in us, a malevolence about the world and a malevolence about existence. All right, Lincoln says, hi, Yaron. I'm in a process of important discussion with my girlfriend, and we're planning on getting married after college in 3 years. After we both finish undergrad, following your advice on sex and living together before marriage, which will be helpful, the issue we're facing is education of potential future kids. After law school, we'll make enough to send kids to private school, but they're almost all religious Catholic schools. Do you believe the educational benefits and avoiding government propaganda is worth putting up with religiosity of the private schools? All right, so I'm not sure I completely understand all the question. But you say here, both finishing undergraduate, following your advice on sex and living together before marriage, which will be helpful. Oh, so you are following my advice on that. Good. So the question is about schools. I think you have to go and evaluate the school on a concrete basis. I'm sure there are Catholic schools out there that are pretty secular and are just good, high-quality schools. And of course, it depends on the alternative. How bad are the government schools in the region? So every region, every school district is going to be different. You also could look for better secular private schools. They do exist. I know in California they exist. But also that's not a guarantee. But you just need to, wherever you're going to live, wherever you get jobs, I guess, you're going to have to go to the schools and evaluate them. Certainly when your kids are young, you've got plenty of time to do all this because first, you've got pre-K and kindergarten. And for that, and I'd say through third grade, you can probably rely on Montessori. Montessori is excellent. Again, you have to find the right Montessori school. There's a lot of resources online. There are a lot of objectivist Montessori teachers you can consult with and objectivist Montessori experts. And I would just say give them a great Montessori education at the early ages. And while you're doing that, figure out what the best school in your region is and go and visit the Catholic school and figure out how much does Catholicism really play a role. To the extent that it does, don't send them there. To the extent that it doesn't, maybe it's okay. So you've got to evaluate, and maybe the government school is not that bad, and maybe the private schools are even better. You just have to evaluate the particular schools in the particular region. But you're safe for the first 8-9 years because of Montessori. Hakun says, given your concern about today's academic climate, what general advice would you give for approaching undergrad? Also, since I applied to Santa Clara University, what are your thoughts on the school? I mean, I think the approach to undergrad is first think about where you're going. It depends on your degree, depends what you want to study. Find a university where you think there are real scholars there that will teach you. Forget about politics. Focus in, is there real scholarship being done there? Is there real knowledge that they're going to convey to you? That it's not right-wing propaganda or left-wing propaganda, or mainly left-wing, but could be right-wing, that it's not propaganda. It's not driven by some agenda, but they're actually serious people who want to teach you something. You might not agree with everything they teach you, but that's okay. You're never going to agree with everything, or shouldn't agree with everything. So you want to go to a place that's going to challenge you, that's going to expose you to great to great thinkers, and just approach undergraduate that way. Go to school where that's going to happen. I don't know that much about Santa Clara. It depends on what degree you're getting. It has a decent business school. I don't know about other departments and how good they are and what they teach. Even though it's a Catholic school, they only have like one theology class requirement, and taking a class in theology is not a bad idea. You get to learn how bad religion is from the religionists themselves. It's a pretty campus. It's a nice place. It's a really nice place to go to school. But I would say really look at who are the professors going to be in the field that you're studying, and do you think you've got something to learn from them? That should be the standard. Whoa, still a lot of questions and not a lot of time. Okay, Jennifer. Isn't there a difference between music that is complex, well-played, melodic, but just doesn't float your boat, and music that is discord, repetitive, very simplistic? There's a big difference between chopsticks and Mozart. Yeah, absolutely. I mean, huge difference. And the challenge is to be able to tell the difference. And for that, you have to be exposed to it. You have to give it time. The complex ones, the simple one is easy. You have to give it time. You have to be patient with it. You have to let it affect you. You have to learn a little bit about it, particularly when you talk about classical. And then when it comes to popular music, you have to be able to find that kind of popular music and find complexity in popular music. There's not a lot of it. But at least what I want from popular music is beauty, is melody. That's what I want. I don't need a beat. I don't need anger. I don't need frustration. Although maybe I did when I was a teenager and related a little bit to it, but not a lot. Like I love Pink Floyd, and I love Pink Floyd primarily because they generate beautiful melodies. Yes, there's anger there. Yes, there's frustration. Yes, there's darkness. But there's also just a beautiful melody. Right? Wish You Were Here, Shine On You Crazy Diamond. They're just beautiful melodies. And I find that inspiring. I find that inspiring. Let's see. So yes, there's absolutely a difference objectively. I just don't want to make the claim that I know objectively that I can differentiate between them particularly, right? I can differentiate to some extent. Taylor Swift, shallow, monotone. Beethoven, phenomenal, deep, complex. But in between, I'm not sure I'm qualified. Andrew, I think your answer to the following question is a good way to connect between material and spiritual values. How is it rationally selfish act for you to advertise for your son on your show when it's not you getting the job? Yeah, I mean, because you want to benefit those you love. You want to help those you love. You are spiritually rewarded by their success. Their happiness is part of your happiness. You know, you want the people you love to do well in life. It's a value to you. They represent, as human beings, they represent a value, and therefore their success in attaining values is a value. So, and that's spiritual. It's not material. It doesn't add to my bottom line. It's not that I have to send him, you know, less money on a monthly basis. I don't send him any money on a monthly basis. So it's just that he will be happy, and therefore he's a value, right? It's a value. So, and it's a spiritual value. Not sure, though, that achieved the goal you were setting out. Lincoln, I look forward to visiting Italy next March over spring break for the first time since I was a child. I'll be visiting Rome, Florence, and Orvieto. Should be a fun week admiring great art and history at the Uffizi and Vatican museums, and we'll enjoy some wonderful food and finally try wine. All right, I'm not sure there's a question there. I guess there's no question, but yeah, I mean, I'm excited for you to experience Italy. I mean, that is great. That is really, really amazing. Okay, B. Bradley, you explained the difference between status and hierarchy beautifully and connected it to self-esteem and first-hand self-worth. Many pieces finally clicked for me. Thank you. Sex, status, and self-esteem is a topic many struggle with. Yeah, I mean, I think that's right. And I did that in my interview with, what is it, Stitch and Adam on that show. I posted that interview up on my channel. And that was a good exchange. And they pushed me on it, which gave me an opportunity to say stuff I haven't really said anywhere else, because I've never thought in terms of status. It wasn't a concern. And you guys haven't asked me about it. But that would make a good show on the relationship between status, hierarchy, and self-esteem, and egoism, and the relationship between all those. And, you know, so I really think that exchange, yeah, that was really valuable. I'm glad you enjoyed it and benefited from it. Maybe I should have Christian slice that exchange out and then post it under something like status, just a separate video. I'll do that. Okay, Andrew says, proud to be a YBS member. I was going to ask if one can claim that reason is morality, but then thought that would omit action, choice, thoughts. I mean, reason is the cardinal value under morality. You know, but you have to, implied in that is that you will act on reason. It's not just a hypothetical. But reason and the action that it requires, the actions in reality that it requires, are morality. Yes, the application of reason to action is morality. Is being moral, not morality, is being moral. Okay, Lincoln again. I've noticed anti-Semitism being pretty common among the anti-Federal Reserve gold bug market crash prediction subset of financial, especially recently. I think these deserve to be taken somewhat seriously given the debt and market valuation. Any advice on identifying the smart ones in finance? Oh, God, I don't know. You know, the smart ones in finance are not going to be telling you a simplistic story about the world. They're not going to be declaring every year there's going to be a crash. They're not going to be telling you, you know, that the world, that the only bad, you know, that the only thing bad in the world is that we're not on a gold standard. I think you want thinkers, people who think and view the world in complexity and see the value of productive activity and see America as being productive and see the value in the stock market and don't have a one-dimensional view of the world out there. Michael, is more lost by indecision than wrong decision? I don't know. The two are related, I think, because indecision leads to, because you have to decide in the end of the day, decisions have to be made. Indecision leads to bad decision. or wrong decisions? I don't know, but indecision is a big, big issue. Lincoln Gaffney says, as opposed to the anti-Semitic loons on Twitter, these are at least finance guys, but they're still loons. There's still a loony element to them. And the very fact that they're anti-Semitic rules them out as people I would take any financial advice from. All right, Michael, is it actually a good thing millennials are getting married at lower rates? They're being more selfish and not settling for somebody they don't love just for societal approval and status. I mean, it depends why they're doing it. So I don't know why they're doing it. I don't know why they're getting married so late. If it's for that reason, if it's because they don't want to settle, if it's because they want to be more mature when they make the decision, then sure, it's a good thing. But if it's for other reasons, because they're being hedonistic or they're being shallow or they've got ridiculous standards or a bunch of different things, if they're being irrational about it, then no, then it's not good. So it really depends on why. And I don't know enough millennials to be able to tell you why. But yeah, I mean, don't get married for the sake of getting married. Get married because for real reason. Real Spark, was it second-handed when Brando in On the Waterfront says he could have had class, could have been somebody? He needed to be boxing champ in order to do this. Is it second-handed? No, I don't think it's second-handed. I mean, the point is not I could have been liked by other people. It's that I could have achieved something in life. Part of the tragedy of the movie is that he doesn't do what he originally wants to do, what he can actually achieve in a sense, he settles. And so I think it's I don't think it's second-handed to want to achieve. Now, maybe the achievement is reflected in a kind of a second-handedness of I could have been somebody to some, but I could have been somebody to myself. I could have had class, which represents I could have been more than I am now. So I think he's striving to achieve something. He's striving to achieve, which I don't think could have been a contender. I don't think that's second-handed. I think that's, he wanted to be a boxer. He wanted to contend, and he didn't. And he didn't want to do it because people would love him. He wanted to do it because he would gain self-respect from it, self-esteem from it. Tom Stoppard died. Did you like any of his plays? I have to admit that I haven't seen any of his plays. I'm looking at a list of them just to see if dodge my memory, but I don't think I've seen his plays. Sadly, it seems like theater. I'm not strong in theater, and the theater I know something about is old. It's not more modern. So I wish I've heard good things. So I wish I've seen some Harold Pinter, mainly because they were made into movies and I saw them as movies, but I haven't seen Tom Stoddard. Sadly, I'm ignorant. Lincoln, I was 10 when I rejected faith. When I was told by my religious teacher, bread and wine became the literal body and blood of Christ. Yeah, that would turn you off, even if it makes you a cannibal, kind of. It's a little weird. John, the Byzantines effectively invented hospitals and were motivated by Christian principles of charity. Also had the first separation of conjoined twins. All right, a few things. One, charity is not particularly important. I don't think charity is an important virtue. So I don't think that it makes them any more civilized. Again, I don't agree with you about hospitals, right? I mean, there was the equivalent of hospitals in Greece. They didn't call them hospitals. There was the equivalent of hospitals in the Muslim world. Now, I don't know if that comes before Byzantines or post-Byzantines. I'd have to go research hospitals. But even if they invented hospitals, it doesn't really change anything. First separation of conjoined twins. Great. All right. I mean, the Byzantine Empire survived for over 1,000 years. Over 1,000 years from, I don't know, 400, let's just round it out to 400 AD to 1400 AD. Over 1,000 years. And that's their achievements? Not much. Not much. And the hospitals that they had, the medicine that they were practicing in the hospitals was Greek or Muslim. Very little came from them themselves. The great treatises on medicine were written by Greeks or by Muslims. John, do you dispute Rand cheated on her husband and this caused him to drink too much? What do the archives say about Frank's drinking? I do dispute that Rand cheated on her husband. To cheat means to lie, to deceive, to do it behind somebody's back. She didn't cheat on him. She slept with another man, but told him she was sleeping with another man. He knew about it. So that is not cheating. But do I dispute that she slept with another man while she was married? No, I don't. I actually consider it one of the things I like about Ayn Rand, that she did that. You know, as I've said in the past, she was a radical breakthrough thinker, and that she would be conventional when it comes to sex and relationships would be shocking. So she experimented. She tried something. She thought she was in love with two men at the same time. That's radical and unusual, and she acted on it. I don't see that as a vice at all. I see that as incredibly courageous. It didn't work out, which I think it doesn't work out most of the time. It doesn't work out. It's not something that can be done very easily, if at all. But she tried. Good for her. Did that cause him to drink too much? I know of no evidence to suggest that. I don't know that he drank too much. The evidence is very mixed on that. There are plenty of people who say that he didn't drink that much. That is, that the people who want to smear Ayn Rand say that he did. Other people have said that he didn't drink, and I have no reason to believe that that is what caused him to drink too much, and neither do you. So you're getting it as, second-handed from people you know are antagonistic to Ayn Rand. And the fact that you place any particular importance on that is striking. I don't place much importance on it. Like Leonard Peikoff, who hung out with Ayn Rand during those years, maybe more than anybody, denies that he drank. Marianne Suarez, who was very close to Ayn Rand during those years, denied that Frank drank. Harry Binswanger I don't know if Harry was there when Frank was around as much. But certainly Marianne Suarez and Leonard were there all the time and denied it. So I don't consider her sleeping with another man while she was married as a moral flaw. It was a mistake, but I don't consider it a moral flaw. All right. Let's see. Ooh, all right. The right loves hating on secular Christmas, but I find it amazing. We turned a holiday about worshiping a destructive faith into celebrating wealth and our prosperity as a nation. Yeah, it's a beautiful holiday and a wonderful, wonderful secular holiday, the way it's practiced in the U.S. Oliver, I read a nonpartisan uni group with capitalist center-right values. I lead a nonpartisan uni group with capitalist center-right values. As an objectivist now, I'm unsure I can still represent it. Can I? Well, I don't know. I mean, it's secular, center-right, it's capitalist, it's nonpartisan. I don't know how religious it is, but why not? Hey, by the way, why don't you invite me to come and give a talk to your group and create an event around it in Sweden? We've talked about this, Oliver. So I don't know. I'd have to know more about the what that means to lead it. That is, to what extent are you expressing ideas or forced to express ideas or sanctioning ideas you really are opposed to? I mean, I'd need a lot more concretes to figure that out. If you really feel like you're violating your integrity, then yeah, you shouldn't lead the group. Maybe stay a member without leading it. By the way, you should invite me to give a talk. All right, SAKU fan. Obama deportations, 3 million, Trump 1.6 million. What's the difference between them in this one area? P.S. I'm not a Trump fan, LOL. I mean, the big difference is that Obama basically deported them at the border. They crossed the border and they were detained and immediately turned around and deported back or put in planes and sent back or whatever it was. He didn't send ICE to hunt people down in their workplace. ICE didn't roam the streets in little gangs with faces covered, fully armed in bulletproof vests, and arrest people at their workplace. There's a big difference between that. So the numbers might not be reflecting it, but that's because Trump has sealed the border. People aren't crossing to send back. So he has to, in order to get his numbers up, he has to literally go to people's workplaces and drag them out of there, which is something Obama did very little of. That's the difference. All right, again, SAQ, tried to send question about Islam, Google blocked. Try to hide the fact that it's about Islam, so misspell Islam, do things like that to try to get the question across. Andrew, it does great damage to the psyche to think that love is impractical and therefore is irrational. Absolutely, it destroys the capacity to love. It destroys the motivation to go find love because it's irrational. SAQ, if a country approves jailing, unaliving, killing, apostates, gays, cheaters, and the immigrants from there are saying they will outbreed, outvote us, is it wrong to halt immigration from there? Well, not in and of itself, right? They haven't said that they want, just because a country approves of jailing apostates and gays and cheaters doesn't mean that these particular people believe in jailing those people. And look, a West that is confident in its values, a West that is confident in its ability to assimilate people who disagree with it, doesn't worry about these things because these people will be assimilated. They might come over thinking they still hold those values, but they are going to be, they're going to be dissuaded from that within one generation by their assimilating culture. So the only reason this is an issue is because our culture is so timid and afraid. But if you want to complain about something, complain not about the immigrants, complain about the timidity and the fear of our culture. Second, to the extent that we are willing to declare that these people are at war with us because they reject our civilization, want to turn it upside down, and are willing to use violence in order to attain that, i.e. to the extent that we're willing to declare Islamism an enemy ideology, then the people who hold an Islamist perspective could be banned from immigrating. They're holding the ideology of the enemy. But that requires us to, again, have the courage and the forthright to say they're the enemy and then ban them. But short of any of that, on what basis are you going to stop people from emigrating? Real spec. Why did hippies replace Western civilization for indigenous civilization? Also, does that country song Rich Man of Richmond dovetail with alt-right? Why did the hippies replace Western civilization for indigenous civilization? Because they worship the primitive. They worship the anti-civilization. And it's not, there is no such thing as indigenous civilization for the most part. It's indigenous whatever. It's indigenous societies, but there's no civilization there. It's because they worship the primitive and they went the direction of the primitive, towards the primitive. I did a whole analysis of Rich Men of Richmond when it came out. And yes, it dovetails with the grievance mentality of the alt-right, but also of the left. So it's a song that fits both left and right. It's all about grievance. It's all about other people's faults. It's all about the financiers, the bad guys, the people, the intellectuals. It's all about grievance. It's all about a rejection of, the people who've been successful. All right, we're going to do these 4 questions, and I'm out of here. Lincoln, I nearly went to Santa Clara. Wonderful school, but Arizona, wonderful philosophy, politics, and economics program, and low cost made difference. Yes, Arizona has a really good PP&E program. Neo, you should be separating these kinds of shows so it's easier to find later in playlist and label them in parts. I will, once I get a few of these shows, I will separate them into playlists. I'll create playlists. Although very few people use the playlists feature in YouTube, unfortunately. SAQ, are you familiar with Raymond Ibrahim, author, historian, I think, on some crusade books, The Two Swords of Christ, and if so, is he worth reading? No, I'm not familiar with him. I haven't read books on the crusade. I would like to, but I haven't yet gotten it. It's part of my big history reading. It's on my big history reading list. Drin, you are very good on Adam's show. You should do these interviews more often to get challenging questions. Responding to them, that's when you excel. Yeah, I mean, I need to be invited, right? And you should encourage show hosts to invite me on their shows. SAQ, do you think that we should, at this point, declare Islam an enemy and ban it? I'm in Canada, so it might be different than the United States, but we are at that point. No, I don't think you should declare Islam an enemy. You should declare Islamists, people who want to use Islam to convert your culture, people who want to use Islam with violence. They should be banned. We should declare war on them, not on Islam qua religion, on Islamists qua ideology within the religion. And yes, I've been saying that since 2001. That is for 25 years, 24 years. Andrew, when I was young, I was proud to be a Jew in a real intellectual young male sense. I valued being a minority qua minority and a corresponding hostility towards the majority. What mystical driven mistaken emotions? Yes, very. I mean, it's but it's also driven by altruism. There's you get a certain thrill from being persecuted, for being a persecuted minority. I remember we used to compete as kids whose dad was poorer. Like, you gain virtue by coming from a poorer family. You gain virtue by being some kind of poor, a victim, suffering in some way. The more you suffer, the more virtue you get. And I think that is part of the pride of being an oppressed minority, a victim. All right. Lincoln says, in the process of working with the school's PP&E program to find a date for you to speak on campus about capitalism. Hopefully we can find a date soon. I hope so. That'll be exciting. I haven't given a talk at Arizona State. This is Arizona State, I think, in a very long time. That'll be cool. All right, guys, I have to run for dinner. I will see you all tomorrow, twice, 2 shows tomorrow. Harry Bin Swinger in the evening, and a regular news show at 2 p.m. East Coast time. So 2 shows tomorrow. See you guys tomorrow. This is University of Arizona in Tucson. Haven't been to University of Arizona in Tucson in a long time. So that'll be fun. That'll be great. I'm looking forward to that. I didn't know they had a good PP&E program. You'll have to tell me more about it. Bye, everybody.